Hello everyone, myself Nandita Ashri. In today's session, we are going to explore an extremely important topic in cryptography and network security, which is authentication protocols and digital identity production. So, security is not just about encryption, it is about proving who you are, and that is what we will focus on today. So let's begin with the idea of digital gatekeepers. So when you log into your bank account or access your email or connect to a secure server, so there are invisible systems verifying your identity. So these systems use cryptographic protocols to decide are you really who you claim to be, and that's the authentication that acts like a security gate. So only verified identities are allowed inside. So today we are going to understand how these gatekeepers work. So here is the main problem. On the internet, identity is invisible. So Alice, the subscriber, wants to access their bank, but there is an attacker, Eve, listening. So the bank is the verifier. So how does the bank confirm that the request truly comes from Alice and not Eve? So user authentication means that's the process of determining whether a user is actually who they claim to be. So this is the core challenge in remote communication because attackers can intercept, modify or replay messages. So we need secure authentication mechanisms. So there are three main authentication factors. First is knowledge, something you already know. Example, passwords or pins. So the weakness is they can be guessed or shared. Second is the possession, something you have like smart cards or USB tokens. So it can be easily stolen or cloned. Third is the inherence, something you are, like a fingerprint, face ID, or the retina. Weakness is false positives and difficult to revoke. So these three categories form the foundation of authentication systems. To increase security, we combine multiple factors. So this is called multi-factor authentication or MFA. So for example, PIN, which is from knowledge, and smart card, which is a position. So together they create stronger security. So even if someone steals your smart card, they still need your PIN. So MFA forces an attacker to break two different types of security at the same time. So that makes attacks much harder. So that is why banks and secure systems use MFA today. So now let's talk about an important threat, that is replay attacks. So imagine Alice sends a transfer request of $100 to the bank. Eve intercepts the message and later she resends the exact same message. But if the system accepts it again, the bank transfers another $100. So that is the replay attack. So there are three types. First is simple replay, copying and sending it later. Repetition, replaying within a valid time window, or the backward replay, reflecting the message back. So replay attacks exploit systems that don't verify message freshness. So how do we stop them? So to prevent replay attacks, we use two strategies. First is the timestamp. Each message includes the current time. So if the message is too old, it will be rejected. But this requires synchronized clocks. And strategy 2, nonce. A nonce is a random number used only once. So for example, the server sends a random challenge. The client responds using that nonce. Since the nonce changes every time, old responses cannot be reused. So nonce are widely used in challenge response authentication protocols. Now let's move to symmetric authentication. So in symmetric encryption, Alice and Bob do not directly share a key. So instead they rely on a trusted middleman, the Key Distribution Center or KDC. So Alice shares a master key with the KDC and Bob also shares a master key with the KDC. So when Alice wants to communicate with Bob, the KDC generates a temporary session key. So this session key will be securely delivered to both of them. So now Alice and Bob can communicate securely, and this model is widely used in systems like Kerberos. However, the KDC must always be trusted. If the KDC fails, the overall system fails. So that is the trade-off. So now let's look at one of the classical authentication protocols, which is the Needham-Schroeder Protocol. So this protocol uses a KDC and symmetric keys. So let's see the notations where A means Alice, B is the Bob, and KDC, which is the key distribution center, and KA, which is a master key that has been shared between Alice and KDC, and KB, which is the master key shared between Bob and KDC, and KS, that is the session key generated by KDC, and N1 and N2, those are the nonce, which are random numbers, and E of k comma x, which means encryption of message x using key k. So as this protocol uses a KDC and symmetric keys, the first step includes Alice will send a request to the KDC by saying I want to talk to Bob and includes a nonce, which is a random number to prove freshness. And in step 2, the KDC will generate a session key and it will send two things back to Alice, the session key encrypted with Alice master key as well as a ticket for Bob encrypted with Bob's master key. So in the step 3, Alice will forward Bob's ticket to Bob. And in step 4, Bob will decrypt the ticket and gets the session key and will challenge the Alice with a new nonce. And in step 5, Alice will respond correctly using the session key. So now both are authenticated and will share a secure session key. So this is a powerful protocol, but it had a flaw. So the problem with the original Needham-Schroeder protocol was this. If an attacker stole an old session key, they could replay old messages. To fix this, Denning introduced timestamps. So now the ticket includes a timestamp along with the session key. So this means the session key has an expiration time. Even if an attacker captures it, they cannot reuse it later because it will expire. So timestamps prevent replay of old session keys. However, this requires synchronized clocks between systems. So next we improve efficiency. In real systems, users reconnect frequently. So instead of contacting the KDC every time, the Neuman-Stubblebine Protocol allows re-authentication using a previously issued ticket. So if the ticket has not expired, Alice can reuse it to reconnect to Bob. So new nonsense are exchanged to ensure freshness, and this reduces the load on the KDC and will improve the efficiency. So it is a more practical version of symmetric authentication. Now let's move on to asymmetric authentication. So here we do not use shared secret keys. Instead, Alice encrypts message using Bob's public key. So she will sign message using her own private key. So Bob decrypts using his private key and verifies Alice's signature using a public key. So there is no shared secret record. So public keys are stored in a public repository like a public directory. So this model works well in open networks like the internet, but it depends on trusting the authenticity of public keys. So now let's look at the Woo and Lam protocol. So its unique feature is the digital signature check. So here is what happens. So Alice will send a nonce encrypted with a private key, essentially signing it. And Bob will receive it. But instead of directly trusting it, Bob asks the authority to verify that the signature truly belongs to Alice. So authority checks and confirms. This adds an extra layer of trust. So it combines asymmetric cryptography with authority verification. So however, the original Wu and Lam protocol had vulnerabilities. So it is vulnerable to something called bit dwindling attacks. So where attackers manipulate encrypted blocks. So the improved version includes sender ID, receiver ID, session key and nonce. So all explicitly included inside encrypted blocks. So this will prevent confusion and impersonation. So protocol must be designed while consider subtle attacks. So even small missing details can create big vulnerabilities. So now let's discuss one-way authentication. So this is commonly used in email systems. So Alice can send a secure message to Bob. For that, she needs to do two things. First is the confidentiality. She needs to encrypt the message using Bob's public key so that only Bob can decrypt it. Second is the authentication. She will sign the message using a private key. So Bob verifies the signature using Alice's public key. So this is like sending a sealed envelope with a wax seal. So encryption protects secrecy and digital signature proves identity. So this model is used in secure email and digital alerts. So let's review important terminology. First is nonce, a random number used once to prevent replay attacks. And timestamp that will ensure message freshness. Session key, it is a temporary key used for one session. KDC, Trusted Server in Symmetric Authentication. Public or private key used in asymmetric systems. MFA, it is a multi-factor authentication while combining different factors. So these are the building blocks of authentication protocols. So understanding these terms helps you understand any security system. Thank you everyone.